Alright, so I wanted to take a quick minute here and show you some of the forecast tools that I use for deciding whether or not I want to be out on the ocean or not. So if you come here to PNW Jetski Fishing.com and go to the forecast tools tab on that, it'll be here on the top. I'm demonstrating all this on a tablet today. You can do this from your smartphone, from your computer. A couple of the links on here are smartphone apps, so they work on tablets, smartphones, any of that mess. And then a couple other are website based. So one of the first ones that I always check to see if I'm going to be looking at going offshore or whatever is going to be down here, and it's this wind finder application. So if we shrink out of this, it's available iTunes, App Store, or Google Play Store, or whatever. The wind finder, so this is what the icon on it looks like. You'll open it up. I don't have too much configured on here because I do most of my stuff off my smartphone. But for this one here, is when you download it, it'll come with some preset stuff. A lot of it's just different places around the world. Delete all those out, and then you'll come down here to the search tab. It'll pull up basically an overlay of a Google map, and we can shrink all the way down here. And for today, with summer coho season getting ready to open up here in June off the Columbia, I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of show you guys what some of that's about. Not quite sure why that crashed. That's cool. So we'll do that one more time. Alright, so we'll shrink down here and just kind of pick this spot off the mouth of the Columbia. And Clatsop Spit Buoy is the spot. I'm going to click that guy, and it'll pull up the today's forecast and then continue out for the next several days as to what the weather there is going to be. So today's a really good example of what this bar can look like and what can happen on it. So if we shrink down here and we look at today's forecast, we got Friday, May 10th. Winds not terrible until the afternoon. We'll get a little bit of a wind kicking up. So based off of those just the wind numbers, I would be shooting to get off the water by noon. Looking at just the wind, nothing else. All right, so I'd have launched this morning, gone out, first light, done my fishing, and with those winds kicking up, they're between 11 and 2 o'clock, look to get off the water somewhere in the ballpark at noon. The flip side of that, the other main thing that you need to keep aware of, especially on the Columbia, is these next sections over here. So your waves are going to be down next to nothing, right? I mean, this is just beautiful forecast. You fish that all day long, 3.5 foot swell at 11 seconds. That is, you couldn't ask for a flatter ocean. Where this gets real tricky is on the tides. So right now this is saying that my high tide is going to be 7.5 feet at 4:30 in the morning, and my low tide is going to be negative 0.2 feet at 11:30, basically right around noon. So the entire morning, when the winds are good, the tide's going to be outgoing, and that's probably not going to be a very good bar to be trying to get in and out of. So that's the wind finder app. That's the first place I go to look, and those are some of the things that I see. I get the how's the wind looking for the place I'm going, what's the swell looking like, and what are my tides. That's how you read all that information. So now if we go back to the forecast page, and we can kind of look and see what those current conditions are doing. So as you can see right now, it's 12:45 p.m. So it's just in the afternoon. We're about an hour past low tide, and we can come to this NOAA bar camera link. So when we come to that, this is an extremely useful page. I use this a lot on days that I'm not fishing. Right, so take today for example. Today's forecast calling for a ridiculously flat ocean, reasonable winds the entire morning, but a high to low tide swing of about a 7 to 8 foot exchange happening there, up and down the coast. Okay, so if I come and look at what's happening there, I can come in here and look at the Columbia River, and it's kind of blurry to see, but the Columbia River is going to be restricted to 16 feet and less west of buoy 10. Right, and that is 100% due to the outgoing tide. It's all just ebb chop stirring up the main channel. So that's something to consider for sure. When you're in doing this stuff, watch what those forecasts are doing, and watch what those tides are doing. And on days that you're not fishing, go and look at what your forecast tools are saying, what today's conditions are going to be, and then come to this page and see exactly what those conditions are doing to each of the bars. And the things you're going to want to pay attention to is it outgoing tide? Is it an incoming tide? Is it high slack? Is it low slack? You know, what part of the tide swing is it in, and what effect does that have on the different bars up and down the coast? Really useful page. Use this one a lot. You know, you definitely don't want to get stuck going out the Columbia River this summer and pick the wrong time to go out. The tide swings, and now you're stuck outside because of the bar restrictions for several hours, waiting for something to change. Okay, so we'll close out of that guy. Some of the other kind of cool tools on this. We got the NOAA spot check tool. This one kind of comes in handy. This is another computer-based deal. You can come in, you can come in. This map is typically available. You can zoom the map in. This works a lot better on computers than it does on tablets or phones. You can zoom in, click a particular spot, and get a forecast for that spot. And it's typically a 2.5 by 2.5 kilometer square forecast. I see a lot of people using this, the NOAA forecast tool, which is a pretty good tool to use, and it gets a fair amount of information. One of its biggest downsides, though, is the area that it covers. Right, so this forecast all right here is for coastal waters from Cape Shoal, Washington to Cascade, Oregon, out to 10 nautical miles. So this is the 10 nautical miles of the shoreline going outbound from up in Washington down to Cascade Head, Oregon. The geographical area that this forecast covers, and you can kind of go down, you know, that the next one here is 10 to 60 nautical miles out. The next one is Cascade Head down to Florence, Oregon, so the whole central coast. You can get a lot of variance when you're covering that much territory. So this will typically give the worst case scenario for everything inside that geographical location, and that geographical location is really big. So if you want kind of a broad picture, if you're going to be traveling a long distance once you get outside, this is a really good forecast to use, because this gives you kind of the broad picture of an entire area versus a pinpointed location. So that's what that site's all about. Got some tide tables in here. That one's pretty straightforward. A lot of that information is available on some of these other apps. Another one I like to use is this distance calculator. This guy comes in really handy for planning trips. Really straightforward. You just punch in your GPS location of where you're starting, your GPS location of where you're planning to go to, hit calculate, and it's going to tell you the nautical mile distance between them. You can change those settings to kilometers, SM, whatever that is, and back and forth. So maybe standard miles, I don't know. But anyway, so that's kind of the gist of that. Really good for if you're planning on going after tuna. You got a preset area of where you're wanting to go after the tuna. You got your port you're looking at launching out of, and trying to plan your fuel consumption. Really good site to use for getting an idea of how much fuel you need to be planning if you can, make that 30-40 mile run to get out to the tuna. So then the last one I like to use, or two more that I like to use, there's the Magic Seaweed Forecast. One of the great things about this is it really focuses in on the shoreline. And once we get this guy open, we'll get zoomed in here. And let's take a look at Depot Bay here. Maybe. Yeah, we'll come. There we go. Come into forecasts, and yeah, we'll look at Lincoln City. We'll see what that one's doing. So the cool thing about the Magic Seaweed link and the real useful information there is it focuses really tight in on the shoreline and the forecast that's happening on the shoreline itself. But it's the great thing about it is it gives you this primary and secondary swell, right? And so you can expand this out, 5 miles offshore. It's going to be roughly the same, and so you can expand that out. And today you're going to have kind of a late in the afternoon, this evening, 9 p.m. It's going to be a 2.5 foot swell at 11 seconds, basically coming straight west. A 3 foot wind wave at 6 seconds that is going with basically with the wind direction. If we look at the wind direction all day long, it's kind of blowing north to south, so it's gonna create a 3 foot wind wave at 6 seconds by the end of the day. And then it's going to be another swell. So there's 3 mixed swells in this all day long, and you got a 1 foot swell at 12 seconds going south to north. All right, so all those together is going to make a little bit sloppier of an ocean, a little bit sloppier of a bar crossing, and all that information tied together gives you a real good idea of how much of a washing machine effect you're going to be looking at once you get outside, where none of the other apps give you that great of information about the secondary swell. You just kind of gotta go off of experience of what the wind forecast is and what that wind will typically do to the water and the wind wave that it's going to create. This one gives you a nice breakdown of what those forecasts are looking like. So really like that, using the Magic Seaweed for that piece of the information. Then the last one is this Windy app. Again, this is a application, so we're going to shrink down, and it's this guy here. That's what the icon looks like. This is extremely useful for when you're doing when you want to know exactly how the wind is going to be affecting your trip to go out. So wow, this is definitely new. Okay, so we're going to select fishing. This is they've changed this since I've last been in here. So we'll go to the high definition wind map. Oh geez, nope, nope, nope. Close out of that. There we go. Now I'm into what I like. So we're got a little map icon up here towards the top. We're going to click that. For whatever reason, it's going to open up on the Strait of Gibraltar. Not really interested in what the wind's doing there. So we'll grab the map and we'll shrink it down to what we're doing right now. So this is the current weather forecast and what the current wind speeds are up and down the Oregon coast. And we can kind of, down here on the bottom, you can step through the different days and watch how that's going to affect. So if I select Saturday at 9 a.m., wait for the map to load up, and this is telling me, you know, Saturday by 9 a.m. we're going to have some pretty decent wind kicking up by the forecast model this guy's spitting out. So that's definitely something to consider. And this app's always done a real good job for me of showing me where the wind breaks are going to be in all the different stuff. And kind of at the end of the day, I take all of that information from the Wind Finder app, the Windy app, the NOAA sites, and kind of compile all of it together to get the best picture I can of what the weather forecast is going to be for where I'm going. On days where all of the sites that I'm looking at have basically are all agreeing and telling me the same information, that's awesome. I know it's going to be fairly reliable if each site is kind of agreeing with each other on what the forecast is going to be. You are going to run into days where they don't agree. One site's going to be saying that the wind is fairly calm. The next one's going to tell you that, hey, the wind's going to actually be kind of nasty tomorrow. You know, that's when you need to start thinking about an alternate game plan, and you know, thinking about which app is been more credible and been more reliable for your forecast needs and whatnot. I've found this Windy app, they do wind really well, and they map it out.